Okay, so I've been looking into Paul Hawkins' work at drawdown.org, and he's recently published a book with his group of research fellows who've researched the 100 most successful ways of pulling carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere and either conserving them in existing systems or actually sequestering them into buildings, into the soil, into biomass. And so you can divide it pretty much between conservation of resources and then actual ways of locking up carbon. And the 5 of the 20 most powerful solutions are about our food systems. They're about food waste, because particularly in the Western world, we waste vast amounts of food in our industrial system before it even gets to the shops, because there's gluts or because it doesn't look pretty enough or there's problems with distribution, etc. But other really interesting research is showing that things like multi-strata food forests, so not just like trees here, pasture here, but complex agroforestry systems are actually the most effective way of sequestering carbon into a landscape that also produces food and creates biodiversity. So in our climate, we talk about forest gardening. The Americans talk about food forests because they're more extensive, but we're looking at everything from small to much larger agroforestry, forest gardening systems for producing food, medicines, teas, for drinking teas. We call them garden teas in my house. And in bigger systems, fibres, and also building materials. So that's another example. They've also shown, the research shows that educating girls is actually the 6th most effective of the 100 solutions in the world for conserving carbon, because once we make schools girl-friendly and accessible, it means that girls stay in education longer, they marry later, they don't have so many children, they have better job security and better economic prospects and better health prospects. And we also know that the smallholders of the world, the majority of smallholders in the world are women, and once they have access to better education, they can create more abundant and sustainable food systems, which then feed their children, enhance community health. So the whole thing begins to cascade into a whole sort of trophic cascade of benefits. So those are just a few examples. There's some obvious examples with energy systems. We're seeing the price of renewable energy, particularly solar, actually now outcompete coal in many parts of the world. Also, there's, even with the through-life costs of manufacturing and disposal calculated, you get no sulphur from PV systems, photovoltaics, and you get no nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is a serious greenhouse gas. So energy systems, and not only looking at sort of macro, great big offshore wind farms, but looking at rooftop solar, small panels. And again, that has an effect, particularly in developing countries, on education, because as you know, nearer you get to the equator, the darker it gets, and very quickly, and very dark nights, so it's very difficult to read with a kerosene lamp and very polluting. So these small solar systems can actually, for very little money equivalently, can also enhance the education system as well. So they're all these solutions are really interesting because they're sort of nested in a holistic design, and they're about conservation of habitats, conservation of resources, and then switching out of the non-renewable linear fossil fuel type industrial economy and switching into new technologies, renewables, and microsystems, as well as big systems, big social systems and big energy systems.